Meanwhile, shifting gears, Republicans returning to the salt mines. Joining me now is Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. Let me explain to folks very briefly what we're talking about. Going back to the Trump tax cuts in 2017, one of the things they did was cap the write-off for state and local taxes at $10,000. So a lot of people who pay enormous taxes in blue states, like I do in New York, we were able to write off some of those in federal. That was then capped at $10,000. These Republicans from blue states want to remove that cap, or at least increase it, so that people in those blue states can reduce more of their taxation. Do you think that's good or bad, what they're doing?
Well, the interesting question is, there's a Republican bill to extend most of the tax cuts from 2017, which was a tremendous tax reduction for the American people and very good on growth. And it's why we have the growth that we do have with the lower corporate rates and individual rates. But in addition to that, dealing with people who are concerned, understandably, about the reduction or limits on the SALT tax, the original bill in 2017 also dramatically expanded the amount of your income that isn't taxed for a family of four. 35 million Americans don't have to itemize. All the deductions and credits don't matter because they have so much that's not taxed in the first place, 35 million. Then you add to that, for higher income people, they got rid of the alternative minimum tax, which was supposed to hit 115 people, total, 115 people back in 1969, and was beginning to hit tens of millions. That was pulled back to where it's almost nothing. And that, for people who make between $200,000 and $500,000 a year, say, in New York, for whom SALT would matter, they were already having their SALT deduction taken away by that alternative minimum tax, which took all that away. The alternative minimum tax was removed, so instead of 82% of people in that tax bracket paying it, you had, in fact, 2% that were hit by the alternative minimum tax. So much of what people worry about with having a capped SALT is solved by both the standard deduction expanding, and the Republicans expanded again, this time up to 32,000.
Grover,
but also by getting rid of the alternative minimum tax.
I love you, but sometimes you sound a little too much like a CPA, and I don't know if people were able to follow. It's a complicated subject, but my point, and I think the point of a lot of folks who believe, as you and I do, that taxation should be as low as possible, wonder why the hell doesn't the GOP just go big? Go big. Go for something big, that like a bold new tax plan, a flat tax of 20%, downsizing the IRS, something like that.
Two reasons. The Democrats run the Senate, and the Democrats have the presidency, and anything big, what they're doing now would be tremendous progress.
I know it wouldn't pass now, but the point is that nothing's going to pass in a Democratic Senate anyway that they pass in the House, right?
Actually, I think what the Republicans have put forward is, because it includes the R&D tax credit and many very popular tax credits that even Democrats claim to be for, and expands the exemption for individuals and families, it's very difficult for the Democrats in the Senate to vote against the bill the Republicans are putting forward. I think this can pass, but I agree with you. They should also have a second bill, which is, and by the way, when we get the House and the Senate and the presidency, this is where we're going also.
A blueprint.
You can have bifocal vision. What do we do right now? What are we doing after the next election? Very important project. I think eventually the Republicans will come together on this, because the real problem are incompetent Democrat governors and mayors who tax too much because they spend so poorly. They're the reason SALT matters.
Yeah, I live here in New York. I know that very well. Grover Norquist, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Yeah, unfortunately, for many reasons I can't.
Take care.
But that's another story. Thanks a lot, man.